The single mother believed she was alone when she placed that guilt-ridden letter on the vampire's grave, but the vampire king observed from the shadows, and her words unveiled a truth his council had concealed for years. His son didn't die a traitor, he died a hero, protecting her and her child. The cemetery existed on no map. King Shade moved through the darkness like smoke, his black coat trailing as he passed weathered headstones that had seen no human visitors in decades. The Moonlight Forest Cemetery served as a graveyard for secrets, a place where vampires buried truths they couldn't afford to speak aloud. His son's grave rested beneath an oak tree that had ceased growing the night the boy died. Shade knelt, brushing fallen leaves from the simple stone marker. No grand monument, just a name. Marcus Thorne, beloved son. The council had demanded discretion, a private burial for a private shame they'd called it. Shade had been too broken to argue. That was 3 years ago. Now, on the anniversary of Marcus's death, Shade visited alone, as he'd done every year. Even his most trusted guard remained at the cemetery gates. This grief was his to carry. He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket. Marcus, at 17, grinning at the camera, his dark hair messy from training. Still half boy, half immortal, still believing the world could be better than it was. "I am trying, son," Shade whispered. "But this kingdom you loved, it's rotting from the inside." The wind shifted. Shade's head snapped up, his ancient senses flaring to life. A heartbeat. Human. Close. No human could find this place, much less enter it undetected. Yet there it was, the unmistakable rhythm of mortal blood pumping through fragile veins. He rose silently, shadows gathering around him like loyal hounds. 30 feet away, near a cluster of graves, a figure crouched in the darkness. Small, female, wearing a worn jacket and clutching something white in trembling hands. A human woman. At his son's grave, at midnight. Rage ignited in Shade's chest. Some foolish treasure hunter? A thrill-seeking journalist? Whoever she was, she'd made the last mistake of her very short life. He moved. One moment he stood by the oak tree. The next, he stood directly behind her, close enough to hear her rapid breathing, to smell the fierce sweat on her skin. She didn't notice. She was too focused on the paper in her hands. A letter, she realized, handwritten, the ink smudged in places as if she had been crying while writing it. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Marcus." Shade froze. She knew his son's name. The woman placed the letter carefully on the grave, weighing it down with a smooth river stone. Then she pressed her fingers to her lips and touched them to the headstone, a gesture so tender, so intimate that Shade's fury wavered for the first time in 3 years. "I brought your favorite," she continued softly, pulling something from her pocket, a chocolate bar. She set it beside the letter. "I know you can't eat it anymore, but I had to bring something." His favorite. Marcus's favorite, the expensive dark chocolate with sea salt that he'd smuggled from human towns, savoring it like a guilty secret. How could this stranger possibly know that? The woman stood, wiping her eyes. That's when Shade saw her face clearly in the moonlight. Late 20s, exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that came from years of carrying weight too heavy for one person. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and a thin scar ran along her jawline. Old, but unmistakably from a blade. A hunter's scar. "I know you probably hate me," she said to the grave. "Wherever you are, I hope you understand. I was just trying to protect my baby. I didn't know you were trying to save us." Shade's world tilted. "Save us?" "Miss Lena," a new voice shattered the moment. A guard, one of Shade's perimeter sentries, emerged from the tree line, his hand on his sword. "Miss Lena, you can't be here. It's not safe." She turned and Shade saw terror flash across her face. Not terror of the vampire. Terror of being caught. I know. I'm leaving. I just needed—" "Go," the guard said, not unkindly, "before the king makes his rounds." Too late, Shade thought. The woman, Lena, nodded, and hurried toward the cemetery gates, clutching her jacket tight. She moved with practiced silence, like someone trained to avoid detection. Within seconds, she'd vanished into the forest beyond. The guard sighed and walked over to the grave. He saw the letter and chocolate bar. A sad smile crossed his face. "Still coming back after all this time," he murmured. Then he noticed Shade standing 10 feet away and nearly jumped out of his skin. "Your Majesty, I thought you'd already—" "Who was that?" Shade's voice was cold iron. The guard paled. "A human, sire. She's been coming here for 3 years. Always on the anniversary. She leaves letters and small gifts. I've allowed it. She means no harm. You allowed it?" Shade's eyes flashed crimson. "You let a human defile my son's grave, and you said nothing?" "Sire, please, if you read the letters—" "Get out." The guard fled. Alone again, Shade approached the grave. The letter sat there, innocent and damning. His hand trembled as he reached for it. 3 years. This woman had been visiting for 3 years, and no one had told him. He unfolded the paper. The handwriting was simple, unpracticed, the writing of someone who'd learned to read late in life, perhaps. But the words? "Dear Marcus, I don't know if you can hear me, wherever you are. I don't know if vampires have an afterlife, or if you'd even want to hear from me after what I did, but I have to keep trying. 3 years ago, I hunted you. I tracked you through Redwood Pass with silver bullets and hate in my heart. They told me you were a rogue, a killer who'd slaughtered families. They gave me your description, your patrol route, everything. I was supposed to be the hero. But I wasn't. I was just another fool with a gun." Shade's grip tightened on the paper. "When I found you that night, I had my shot. Clean, easy. You didn't even know I was there. But then I heard my baby crying. Jackson was only 6 months old, strapped to my chest, and he just started wailing. You could have killed us both in a heartbeat. Instead, you smiled. You walked over, slow and careful, and you made funny faces until Jackson stopped crying. You didn't touch him. You didn't touch me. You just made my baby laugh. Then the others came, the real rogues. They'd been following me, using me as bait to draw you out. And you, God, Marcus, you stood between us and them. You fought 5 vampires alone to protect a human hunter and her infant son. I ran like a coward. I grabbed Jackson and I ran while you fought. I heard you scream. I heard you fall. And I kept running. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The letter continued, but Shade couldn't read anymore. His vision blurred, not with tears because vampire kings didn't cry, but with something worse: understanding. His son hadn't died in honorable battle. He died protecting a human, and the council had lied about everything. Shade looked up at the stars, the letter crushed in his fist. Somewhere out there, a human woman named Lena carried the truth his own people had hidden from him, a truth that could shatter his kingdom or save it. He pocketed the letter and walked toward the cemetery gates, his mind already calculating. He needed to find her. He needed answers. And if the council had orchestrated his son's death, they'd learn why Shade had become king in the first place. Because mercy was Marcus's gift. Vengeance was his. Shade's war room had witnessed centuries of bloodshed, but tonight it felt suffocating. He stood before the massive oak table, the letter spread flat beneath his palms, reading it for the 5th time. Each word carved deeper into wounds he'd thought had scarred over. The candles flickering around the room cast dancing shadows on maps and battle plans that suddenly felt meaningless. "I found your patrol jacket 2 weeks after that night. The rogues had torn it apart, but your locket was still in the pocket, the silver one with the engraving. I tried to return it to your father, but the guards turned me away. They said King Shade was in mourning and couldn't be disturbed by a human, so I buried it near your grave. I hope that's okay." The locket. Marcus's locket. The one Shade had given him on his 100th birthday. Practically childhood for their kind. It had their family crest engraved on the front, and a picture of Marcus's mother inside. Shade had assumed it was lost in battle, but it wasn't lost. This woman had tried to return it. His jaw clenched. The council had turned her away? Why? The worst part is what I learned after. I went back to the Hunters Guild, told them what happened. I said you'd saved us, that the intelligence was wrong. They said I was traumatized, that vampires can manipulate minds. They insisted you'd been the rogue all along. But I know what I saw. You died protecting my son. You died because you refused to hurt the innocent. I wish I'd fired that gun at the rogues instead of tracking you. I wish I'd been brave enough to help you fight. I wish I'd done anything except run. Shade's fingers traced the final lines. Your father probably hates humans now more than ever. I don't blame him. We took his son. I took his son. But I need him to know the truth. Marcus was a hero, not a rogue, not a traitor, a hero. I'll keep coming back until someone listens. N. Lena Brooks. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, Shade commanded, his voice hollow. Captain Reeves stepped inside, his silver armor dulled by years of service. He'd been Shade's right hand for 2 centuries. Loyal, brutal, efficient. The council is demanding an audience, Your Majesty. They heard you left the fortress at midnight without your guard detail. Let them demand. Sire, with respect, they're questioning your judgment again. Shade finally looked up, and Reeves took an involuntary step backward. The king's eyes burned with barely contained fury. Tell me something, Captain. 3 years ago, when Marcus died, what did the council tell me? He fell in battle against rogue vampires. He fought bravely, but was outnumbered. Outnumbered? Yes. Shade lifted the letter. And did they mention that he was outnumbered because he was protecting a human woman and her infant child? The color drained from Reeves' face. Your Majesty, Did they mention that the rogues specifically targeted him? That they used a human hunter as bait? Shade's voice rose. Did they mention that my son died defending the very humans they taught him to despise? No, sire. No. Shade crumpled the letter in his fist, then smoothed it out again carefully, reverently. They told me he died fighting rogues in an unauthorized territory sweep. They said he was reckless, impulsive. They implied his death was his own fault. Reeves' hand moved to his sword hilt, not in threat, but in uncertainty. What are you saying? I'm saying the council lied, and I want to know why. Sire, accusations against the council, are you loyal to the council or to your king? The question hung in the air like a blade. Reeves straightened. To you, Your Majesty, always. Then summon them, now, all 7 members. I don't care if they're feeding or sleeping or plotting my overthrow. Get them here within the hour. Reeves bowed and turned to leave, but Shade's voice stopped him. And Captain, find out everything you can about a human woman named Lena Brooks. Where she lives, what she does, who she associates with. I want her history from birth to present day. Are we bringing her in? Not yet. Shade looked down at the letter again, at the desperate handwriting of a woman who'd carried guilt for 3 years. A woman who'd tried to tell him the truth and been turned away. First, I need to know what the council is hiding. Then, I'll decide who deserves punishment. After Reeves left, Shade walked to a locked cabinet behind his desk. Inside sat Marcus's belongings, the few items recovered from the site of his death. A torn jacket, a broken sword, but no locket, because a human woman had taken it to protect it, to preserve it, to try to return it to a father who'd been kept in the dark about his own son's heroism. Shade pulled out a bottle of ancient blood wine and poured himself a glass. His hand shook, barely noticeable but there. 3 years of grief, of believing his son had died for nothing. 3 years of the council's sympathetic looks and hollow condolences. They knew. They all knew. And soon they'd answer for it. The war room door burst open without warning. Counselor Thane swept in, his crimson robes billowing, his aged face twisted in indignation. King Shade, this is outrageous. Summoning the entire council at this hour? Shade threw the letter at his feet. Read it, he said quietly. And then explain to me why my son died alone. Dawn broke over Willow Creek like a wound in the sky, red and raw. Shade stood in the shadows across from a small, weather-beaten house at the edge of the human village. Paint peeled from the shutters, the porch sagged. A child's bicycle lay on its side in the overgrown grass, one wheel slowly spinning in the morning breeze. Lena Brooks lived here, in poverty, in hiding. The council meeting had lasted until sunrise. Counselor Thane had read the letter with trembling hands, then claimed ignorance. The others had followed suit, a chorus of denial and deflection. We reported what we knew, they had insisted. Intelligence suggested the rogues ambushed Marcus during a routine patrol. We had no knowledge of human involvement. Lies. All lies. Shade could smell deception the way sharks smell blood. But he needed proof before he could act against the council, and proof meant finding the one person who'd been there that night. The front door of the house opened. Lena emerged, wearing a waitress uniform and carrying a small backpack. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd slept poorly as well as Shade. She locked the door carefully, twice, and headed down the broken pathway toward the main road. Shade waited until she'd turned the corner, then moved. He crossed the street in silence, reaching the back door in seconds. The lock was cheap, designed to keep out burglars, not vampires. It clicked open under his touch. He slipped inside. The house smelled like instant coffee and lavender detergent. A pair of small sneakers sat by the door, child-sized, worn at the toes. School papers covered the refrigerator, held up by alphabet magnets. Crayon drawings of stick figures and dinosaurs. A life built from scraps and love. Shade moved through the kitchen into a tiny living room. A couch that had seen better decades. A television that probably didn't work. Books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on the floor. Not romance novels or mysteries, but textbooks. Basic mathematics. Introduction to nursing. Anatomy and physiology. She was studying, trying to build something better. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Shade's head snapped toward the sound. The heartbeat was small, quick. A child's heartbeat. "Mom?" a sleepy voice called out. "Did you forget something?" Shade stood perfectly still. He hadn't accounted for the child being alone. Any sudden movement, any sound, and the boy would panic. He needed Lena, not a terrified 8-year-old. The front door opened behind him. "Jackson, I told you to stay in." Lena stopped dead, her keys clattering to the floor, her eyes locked on Shade standing in her living room. Every drop of color drained from her face. To her credit, she didn't scream. She stepped inside slowly, pulling the door shut behind her, placing herself between Shade and the stairs. "Jackson, I need you to stay in your room and put on your headphones, the loud ones. Can you do that for me?" "But Mom!" "Now, baby, please." Footsteps retreated upstairs. A door closed. Lena turned to face Shade fully, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She was shaking, but she stood her ground. "I assume you're here to kill me? If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead." Shade's voice was cold, analytical. "I want answers." "About what?" "About the night my son died." Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, guilt, grief. "I told you everything in the letters." "You've been writing letters for 3 years. Plural. Where are the others?" "At the grave. I write one every year on the anniversary. I thought maybe someone would eventually read them, that someone would care about the truth." "I care." Shade pulled her latest letter from his coat. This says my son saved you, that he died protecting you and your child from rogues. The council told me he died in an unsanctioned territory sweep. Someone is lying. It's not me. Lena's jaw set. I was there. I watched him fight 5 vampires alone. I watched him fall, and I ran like a coward while he bled out in the dirt. The raw honesty in her voice struck Shade harder than any weapon. Why were you there? Why were you hunting him? The guild gave me a contract. They said a rogue vampire was killing families near Redwood Pass. They gave me Marcus's description, his patterns, everything. I didn't question it. I needed the money. Her voice cracked. Jackson was sick. Really sick. I would have hunted the devil himself if it meant affording his medicine. And when you found Marcus? He was sitting by a creek, reading a book about human history. He looked so peaceful. I had him in my sights, and then Jackson started crying, and Marcus just smiled. He made my baby laugh. What kind of monster does that? No kind. Because he wasn't a monster. I know that now. I know that too late. You said in your letter you sensed you were being followed by rogues. Her expression shifted from grief to fear. Yes, for the past 2 weeks. I see shadows that shouldn't be there. Hear footsteps outside my window at night. I thought I was paranoid, but... She glanced toward the stairs. I'm scared they're coming for Jackson. For revenge. Shade's eyes narrowed. Why would they want revenge on you? Because I ruined their hunt. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. They weren't after Marcus randomly. They wanted to kill a member of the royal family, and I got in the way. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. The council's lies, the convenient story, the rogues using Lena as bait. It wasn't an accident. It was an assassination, and the council had let it happen. Shade's instinct screamed danger half a second before the window exploded. Glass shattered inward as a dark shape hurtled through, hitting the floor in a crouch. Red eyes gleamed in the dim morning light. The vampire was lean, feral, with scars crisscrossing his exposed arms, the marks of someone who'd survived countless fights through brutality rather than skill. Well, well, the rogue hissed, his voice like gravel scraping bone. The little hunter's finally got herself a bodyguard. Too bad he's too late. Shade moved between Lena and the intruder, his body coiled tight. You have 3 seconds to leave before I paint these walls with your insides. The rogue laughed, a wet, choking sound. You don't even know who I am, do you? Your Majesty. He drew out the title mockingly. I'm Devon. I was there that night, watched your precious son die, squealing like a... Shade's fist drove through Devon's chest before the word finished forming. The rogue gasped, eyes wide with shock. Shade leaned in close, his voice deadly calm. My son's name doesn't belong in your mouth. He ripped his hand free, letting Devon collapse to the floor, wheezing and clutching at the gaping wound. Mom! Jackson's terrified voice came from upstairs. Stay there! Lena grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter. Her hands shook, but her eyes were clear, fighter's eyes. Devon coughed, black blood bubbling from his lips. You think I came alone? Stupid. There are 5 more outside. They're going to burn this hole. The front door splintered off its hinges. 2 more rogues burst in, moving with coordinated precision. These weren't mindless killers. They were trained. Shade recognized military patterns in their approach, the way they flanked and covered angles. Someone had taught them to hunt as a unit. Shade caught the first one by the throat mid-leap, using the momentum to slam him into the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. The second rogue went for Lena. She was ready. The knife flashed up, catching the vampire across the face. It wasn't silver, wouldn't kill him, but the rogue reeled back, hissing. Lena pressed her advantage, driving the blade towards his heart. The rogue caught in her wrist, twisting. Bone cracked. Lena screamed. Shade crossed the room in a blur, grabbing the rogue from behind and snapping his neck with a single savage motion. The body dropped. Lena staggered back, cradling her broken wrist against her chest, her face pale with pain. Upstairs, Shade commanded. Get your son. Now. I can fight. You're injured and they want you alive. That makes you a liability. His tone left no room for argument. Move. Lena ran for the stairs as Devon, impossibly still alive, began crawling towards the door. Shade stepped on his spine, stopping him cold. How many? Shade demanded. Go to hell. Shade increased the pressure. Vertebrae. Cracked. How many? 8 total. Devon gasped. We've been watching her for weeks, waiting for the right moment. She cost us everything that night. The council's gold, our reputation, the biggest kill of our miserable lives. We want her to suffer before she dies. The council's bold. There it was. Confirmation. Who paid you? Shade's voice was ice. Devon grinned through bloody teeth. You already know. You just don't want to believe it. A crash from the back of the house, breaking glass in the kitchen. They were surrounding the building. Shade made a decision. He grabbed Devon by the neck and dragged him to the front door, throwing him out onto the porch. 3 rogues stood in the yard, circling like wolves. They froze when they saw their leader dangling from Shade's grip. Call them off, Shade said quietly. All of them, or I'll make your death last a week. One of the rogues, a woman with white blonde hair and a cruel smile, stepped forward. You're outnumbered, King. Even you can't take 8 of us and protect the humans. Give us the hunter and her brat, and we'll let you walk away. You can tell yourself you tried. Counteroffer. Shade's eyes blazed crimson. Leave now, and I'll make your deaths quick. The blonde vampire laughed. Marcus was soft, just like you're getting. That's why he died so easily. Your son begged at the end, you know? Begged us to spare the hunter and her screaming whelp. It was pathetic. Rage detonated in Shade's chest, pure, incandescent fury that he hadn't felt in centuries. The air around him seemed to darken, shadows gathering like living things responding to their master's wrath. He dropped Devon and moved. The first rogue died before she could blink, her head separated from her shoulders in a spray of black blood. The second tried to run. Shade caught him in 3 strides, driving him face first into the ground with enough force to crater the earth. The third pulled a crossbow, silver bolts gleaming. He fired. Shade dodged, but the bolt cut his shoulder, burning through his coat. The pain was insignificant compared to his anger. He ripped the bolt free and drove it through the shooter's eye. 3 down, 5 remaining. Glass shattered upstairs. Lena screamed, not in pain, but in fury. A rogue's body crashed through the 2nd-story window, hitting the ground in a twisted heap. He'd been stabbed multiple times with what looked like broken glass. Shade heard Jackson crying inside the house. The remaining rogues heard it too. They smiled. Forget the hunter. The kid's the real prize. Royal Vampire died for him. He must be worth something. They rushed the house simultaneously, moving too fast for human eyes to track. But Shade was faster. He became a whirlwind of death, meeting them at the threshold. Blood painted the morning air. Bodies fell. But one, a small, quick rogue, slipped past him mid-leap, slamming him down through the porch with bone-shattering force. The vampire's spine snapped audibly, but he still clawed toward the house, hissing Jackson's name like a curse. Shade ended him with a single brutal strike. Silence fell over the yard. 8 bodies lay scattered across Lena's property, some still twitching, others already turning to ash in the pale sunlight creeping over the roofline. Shade stood among the carnage, breathing hard, silver burns still smoking on his shoulder. "Mom, there's more coming! I see them from the window." Shade's head snapped up. The boy was right. At the tree line, 3 more figures watched, too distant to engage, but close enough to send a message.
This wasn't a simple revenge hit. This was coordinated, organized. Someone wanted Lena and her son dead badly enough to send waves of killers. Lena appeared at the shattered doorway. Jackson clutched against her side, her broken wrist wrapped in a makeshift splint. "My car!" "Will be a death trap." Shade gestured to the black vehicle rolling up to the property, a fortified transport with darkened windows. Captain Reeves stepped out, his expression grim. "Sire, we need to move fast. I'm getting reports of rogue activity throughout the sector." They loaded into the vehicle. Jackson pressed against his mother, staring at Shade with undisguised fear and fascination. "Are you really the Vampire King?" he whispered. "Jackson, don't!" Lena started. "Yes," Shade said simply. "Did you know my mom saved your son's life?" Shade blanked. "She what?" Lena flushed. "Jackson, that's not—" "She did." The boy's voice gained confidence. "She told me the story. The bad vampires were winning, and your son was hurt, and Mom threw a flash grenade to blind them so he could escape. But he didn't run. He stayed and fought anyway." Shade looked at Lena. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "It was one grenade. It barely helped." "You didn't mention that in your letter. Because it didn't matter. He still died." "But you tried to save him." Shade felt something crack open in his chest, a wound he'd thought had calcified into scar tissue. "And he died anyway," Lena repeated, her voice breaking. "So what difference does it make?" The vehicle pulled through the fortress gates before Shade could answer. The inner citadel rose before them like a mountain of black stone and centuries-old power. Vampires lined the courtyard, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility as they saw the humans emerge from the transport.
"Is that the hunter?" someone hissed. "She's got a child with her. What is the king thinking? He's lost his mind just like his son did." Shade stepped out, and the murmuring stopped instantly. "Captain Reeves, take our guest to the East Wing. Post guards. No one enters without my direct authorization." "Sire, the council is waiting in the throne room. They're not pleased." "Good." Shade's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. "It's time we had an honest conversation." The throne room's massive doors stood open like the jaws of some ancient beast. Inside, all 7 council members waited, their ceremonial robes pristine, their expressions carefully neutral. Councillor Thane stepped forward. "King Shade, this is highly irregular, bringing humans into the inner citadel without council approval." "Shut up," Shade said pleasantly, "and tell me which one of you paid rogues to murder my son." The council chamber fell silent, like a tomb. Shade descended the steps toward the 7 council members, his boots echoing against marble that had witnessed 1,000 years of vampire rule. The throne behind him, carved from obsidian and inlaid with silver, cast long shadows across the floor. Councillor Thane recovered first, his aged face twisting into carefully crafted shock. "Your Majesty, such accusations are—" Devon talked before he died. Shade's voice was conversational, almost friendly. That made it more terrifying. He mentioned the council's gold, specifically, by name. So I'll ask again, which one of you paid to have Marcus killed? Councillor Mara, a sharp-featured woman with hair like spun silver, stepped forward. "If rogues claimed council involvement, they were lying to save their own skins. We would never—" Marcus was becoming a problem, Shade cut her off. He opposed the blood trade expansion. He wanted peace treaties with human settlements. He called your policies barbaric in open session. I remember, because I defended you. I told my son that the council's wisdom had preserved our kingdom for centuries. "And it has," Mara insisted. "Your Majesty, grief is clouding your—" "He died protecting a human woman and her infant child." Shade's eyes blazed.
The rogues used her as bait, knowing Marcus would intervene. They knew his patrol routes, his weaknesses, information only this council possessed. Counselor Vex, the youngest member, spoke up nervously. Perhaps there was a leak, a security breach. It doesn't mean... The woman's name is Lena Brooks. She's currently in the East Wing, under my protection. Shade watched their reactions carefully. Most showed nothing, but Counselor Thane's left eye twitched just once. 3 years ago, she tried to return Marcus's locket to me. My guards turned her away. On council orders. Why? We were protecting you from additional pain, Mara said smoothly. A human claiming connection to your son seemed inappropriate. She wasn't claiming connection. She was returning stolen property and trying to tell me the truth about how he died. Shade's voice dropped dangerously low. You silenced her, just like you silenced the investigation, just like you've spent 3 years lying to my face. Thane drew himself up. This is outrageous. We've served your family for generations. My son is dead because someone in this room wanted him dead. Shade's roar shook the chandeliers. Admit it, or I swear by every dark god our ancestors worshipped, I will tear this council apart member by member until someone tells me the truth. The doors burst open. Captain Reeves rushed in, his face pale. Your Majesty, we have a situation in the East Wing. Shade's expression didn't change. What kind of situation? The fortress vampires, they're gathering outside the guest quarters. Some are demanding the human be executed. Others want her exiled. It's getting hostile. Of course it was. News traveled fast in the Citadel, and nothing traveled faster than outrage. A human hunter, the woman some believed had lured Marcus to his death, now sheltered under the king's own roof. To many vampires, it was an unforgivable insult. Shade pushed past Reeves, the council momentarily forgotten. He moved through the fortress's stone corridors at a dead run, his coat billowing behind him. Behind him, he could hear the council members following, their protests fading into background noise. The East Wing corridor was packed. Dozens of vampires crowded outside the guest suite doors, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger. She's a killer! This is madness! The king's lost his mind! That human murdered Prince Marcus. She should burn. Silence! Shade's command cracked like thunder. The crowd parted instantly, pressing themselves against the walls. Some looked defiant, others appeared ashamed, but none dared speak. Shade walked through them to the guest suite door. Inside, he could hear Jackson crying, Lena's voice calm but strained, trying to soothe him. The guards he'd posted stood at attention, hands on their weapons, clearly uncomfortable with the mob at their backs. My son is dead, Shade addressed the crowd, his voice carrying to every corner. 3 years ago, he died in Redwood Pass. The council told me he fell in battle against rogues during an unauthorized patrol. They called him reckless, impulsive. Some of you whispered that his human sympathies had made him weak. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the vampires. The woman inside that room was there the night Marcus died. She watched him fight 5 rogues alone. She watched him die, protecting her and her infant son from vampires who were paid to assassinate a member of the royal family. Marcus didn't die because he was weak. He died because someone wanted him dead, and they used human bait to draw him out. The woman you want to execute is the only witness to my son's murder. Shade's eyes swept across the crowd. So before you call for her blood, ask yourselves, who benefits from her silence? Counselor Thane's voice rang out from behind him. The king is overwrought. The human has clearly manipulated him with lies. Then let her speak. Shade turned to face the council members who had followed him. Let her tell everyone what happened that night. Let this entire fortress hear the truth, unless you're afraid of what she'll say. Dane's expression hardened. Very well. Let the humans speak, and when her lies are exposed, she'll face justice for her crimes. Agreed. Shade opened the guest suite door. Lena stood in the center of the room, Jackson behind her, a broken chair leg gripped in her hand like a weapon. Her broken wrist hung at her side, clearly causing her agony, but her stance was solid, ready to fight an entire fortress if necessary. They want you dead, Shade said simply. I'm giving you a chance to explain why you should live. But I need you to do something first. What? Lena's voice was steady despite her fear. Stop hiding. Stop apologizing. Shade met her eyes. And tell them exactly what kind of vampire my son really was. The fortress archives smelled like dust and old blood. Lena stood beside Shade in the cavernous library, Jackson asleep in an adjacent room under heavy guard. The confrontation in the corridor had ended with a tense stalemate. The crowd dispersed, but not convinced. Lena's testimony had been raw and genuine, but without proof, many vampires still called her a liar. If the council orchestrated Marcus's death, there will be records, Shade said, pulling leather-bound ledgers from shelves that reached into darkness. Financial transactions, correspondence, something. Lena cradled her splinted wrist, watching him work. The fortress physician had set the bone and given her red pills that dulled the pain but made her thoughts feel like wrapped in cotton. Why didn't you just execute me? It would have been easier.
Easier isn't always right. Shade set a stack of ledgers on the massive oak table between them. My son taught me that, though I was too stubborn to listen while he was alive. Tell me about him. Lena's voice was quiet. The real him, not the prince, not the vampire, just Marcus. Shade's hand stilled on the ledger he was opening. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, he collected human books, fiction, mostly, adventure stories. He'd sneak out to human towns and trade for them. The council thought it was a phase. What did you think? I thought he was curious, restless. He'd lived 100 years but still had the enthusiasm of a child. A ghost of a smile crossed Shade's face. He once asked me why we couldn't just talk to humans instead of feeding on them. He was 35 at the time, practically a toddler. I laughed and told him humans were cattle, nothing more. He didn't speak to me for a week. Lena absorbed this. He was reading when I found him that night. By the creek. Some book with a dragon on the cover. The Hobbit. Shade's voice cracked slightly. His favorite. He'd read it 17 times. They worked in silence after that, combing through decades of council records, financial disbursements, territory disputes, trade agreements, the bureaucracy of ruling an immortal kingdom. Then Lena found it. Shade. She rarely used his name directly. It made him look up sharply. Look at this. The ledger was from 3 years ago, dated 2 weeks before Marcus's death. A single-line entry. Special Operations Fund, Redwood Territory. 50,000 gold sovereigns, authorized by council vote 5-2. 5 voted yes, 2 voted no. The vote was split. Who voted no? Shade flipped to the vote record. Councillor Helena and Councillor Vex. Helena died last year, natural causes, supposedly. Vex is still on the council. He's young, barely 200 years old. 5 members voted to spend 50,000 gold on special operations right before your son died. Lena's eyes met his. That's not a coincidence. No. Shade's jaw clenched. It's a confession. He kept searching, pulling more documents. An hour passed, then 2. The fortress bell tolled midnight when Lena finally spoke again. I need to tell you something. Her voice was thick with emotion. About that night. Something I didn't put in the letters because I was ashamed. Shade closed the ledger he was reading. Go on. When Marcus first saw me and Jackson, he didn't just make my baby laugh. She swallowed hard. He apologized to me. For what? For his kind's treatment of humans. He said he knew what the hunters did, killing vampires to protect communities, and he didn't blame me for tracking him. He thought I was there to kill him, and he apologized to me. What kind of person does that? A better one than I've ever been, Shade said quietly. When the rogues attacked, Marcus told me to run. He said, get your son somewhere safe. He deserves a future. Then he turned and faced 5 vampires alone. Lena's voice broke. I had grenades, silver rounds. I could have helped. But I was so scared, so terrified they'd hurt Jackson, that I abandoned him. You went back. What? You said in your letter you threw a grenade to help him escape. My son could have run. He was fast, well-trained. But he stayed and fought. He stayed because you gave him a chance. You fought for him. I threw one grenade and ran away. You were a human mother, with an infant, facing 5 vampires. The fact that you threw anything makes you braver than most warriors I've known. Shade's expression softened. Marcus stayed because he saw your courage, because you reminded him that humans were worth protecting. Lena wiped her eyes roughly. After I ran, I heard him scream. I heard him fall. I heard them laughing. Her voice turned to ice. The leader, tall one with a shaved head, he said, "The council sends their regards," right before they finished him. The world seemed to stop. What did you say? The leader. He said it right before the end. The council sends their regards. Lena looked at Shade. I thought it was just rogues being cruel. I didn't understand what it meant until now. Shade's hands gripped the table edge hard enough to crack the wood. The council didn't just pay for the assassination. They sent a message with it. They wanted Marcus to know, in his final moments, that his own government had betrayed him. We need more proof, Lena said. This isn't enough to... The archive door burst open. Captain Reeves stood there, his face ashen. Your Majesty, Councillor Vex is requesting emergency asylum. He says he has information about Prince Marcus's death. He says if you guarantee his safety, he'll tell you everything. Shade and Lena exchanged looks. Bring him, Shade commanded. It's time we heard from someone who voted no. Councillor Vex never made it to the archives. The messenger arrived at dawn, his face splattered with blood that wasn't his own. Border village, he gasped, collapsing at Shade's feet. Burned, everyone dead. They left a message. Shade was already moving, Lena close behind to spot his orders for her to stay in the fortress. They rode hard through the forest, reaching the smoldering remains of Thornfield Village as the sun climbed higher. The smell hit them first. Burning wood, charred flesh, and underneath it all the sickly sweet scent of vampire kills. The village was gone, every building reduced to blackened skeletons. Bodies lay scattered in the street, both human and vampire, though the vampires had been dead much longer. Days, maybe weeks. This wasn't a battle, it was a stage. Oh God, Lena whispered, pressing her hand to her mouth. In the center of the village square, written in blood across the scorched earth, were words 10 feet high. Give us the hunter and the child, or we drown your kingdom in blood. Beneath the message, staked to the ground, was Councillor Vex's body. His throat had been torn out, his robes soaked black with blood. Pinned to his chest was a note. Shade pulled it free with trembling hands. He was going to tell you the truth. We couldn't allow that. Consider this a preview of what happens when you protect humans over your own kind. The hunter took something from us 3 years ago. We want it back. You have 3 days. The Crimson Brotherhood. The Crimson Brotherhood, Captain Reeves said, grimly, reading over Shade's shoulder. They're not just rogues. They're organized, military-trained. This is a declaration of war. Shade crumpled the note. How many villages between here and the fortress? 12, sire. All small, mostly human settlements with vampire overseers. Evacuate them, everyone, human and vampire alike. Bring them behind fortress walls. Your Majesty, we don't have the resources. Then find them. Shade's roar echoed across the dead village. I will not let these monsters slaughter innocents to get to one woman. Perhaps we should consider their demands, a voice said. General Cade stepped forward from the group of soldiers who had accompanied them. He was old guard vampire nobility, battle-scarred, ruthless, and deeply traditional. 1 human and her child in exchange for preventing a war. The mathematics seemed clear.
I promise, Shade said, but you're going to deliver that letter to him yourself when this is over. Tell him about the night you were brave enough to fight monsters to save a vampire who showed you kindness. Lena's eyes glistened. He'd like that story. She disappeared into the quarry's depths. Shade and Captain Reeves retreated to the ridge where 30 hand-picked soldiers waited in absolute silence. All volunteers, all loyal, all aware they might not survive the night. She's either the bravest human I've ever met, Reeves murmured, or the most suicidal. Both, Shade said, watching Lena's small figure settle into position near the quarry center. She sat on a rock, making herself visible, vulnerable. Perfect date. The wait began. An hour passed. The sun vanished completely. Stars emerged, cold and distant. The quarry became a bowl of darkness, with Lena a single point of warmth in the center. Then, from the east, exactly as she'd predicted, they came. Shadows detached from shadows, figures moving with predatory grace. 1, then 5, then 10, then more. The Brotherhood materialized around Lena like a noose tightening. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just sat there, waiting. The leader stepped forward, tall, shaved head, the same description Lena had given of the vampire who'd killed Marcus. He circled her slowly, mockingly. "Well, well," his voice crackled through Shade's earpiece, "the little hunter comes crawling back. Did you miss us?" Lena looked up, and even from this distance, Shade could see the defiance in her eyes. "I came to make a deal. My life for my son's freedom. But first, I want to know something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "I want to know which one of you is wearing my son's father's locket." The Brotherhood leader smiled and pulled a silver chain from his shirt. Marcus's locket caught the moonlight, and Shade's world turned red. Shade's entire body went rigid. The locket, Marcus's locket, the one he'd given his son on his 100th birthday, the one that contained a picture of Marcus's mother, Shade's beloved wife, who died 3 centuries ago, the last piece of family Marcus had carried with him. And this rogue bastard wore it like a trophy. "Easy, sire," Captain Reeves whispered, gripping Shade's shoulder. "Stick to the plan." But the plan was disintegrating because through the earpiece, Shade heard Lena's voice crack with genuine rage. "You stole that the night you murdered him." The Brotherhood leader, the vampire who'd ended Marcus's life, laughed. "Murdered? No, sweetheart. We were hired to do a job. Your boyfriend just got in the way." He fingered the locket almost lovingly. "Though I will admit, watching a prince of the vampire kingdom bleed out for a human and her wailing brat was deeply satisfying." "His name was Marcus," Lena said quietly, "and he was a better man than you'll ever be." "Man? He was a traitor, weak, pathetic." He leaned close. "You know, at the end, he begged us to let you go, even offered us his own life in trade. What kind of vampire does that?" "The kind you murdered because you were paid to, the kind the council wanted dead because he threatened their power." The leader's smile faltered. "Smart girl. Figured that out, did you?" "The king figured it out. I just confirmed it." Lena glanced around the assembled Brotherhood. Shade counted 23 vampires total. "How much did you pay you?" 50,000 gold. That's what the ledger said. Seems cheap for killing a prince." "It was a down payment." The leader circled her again. "The council promised us territory rights, unlimited hunting privileges, protection from the king's law. All we had to do was remove one bleeding heart prince who thought humans deserved rights." He spat the word like poison. Through the earpiece, Shade heard every word. His hands curled into fists, claws extending. "Not yet," Reeves hissed. "She hasn't given the signal." "Where's the boy?" another Brotherhood member asked, stepping into the moonlight, female, scarred, vicious-looking. "The deal was both of them." "He's safe, hidden where you'll never find him." "That's unfortunate." The leader pulled a knife, silver-bladed, cruel-edged. "Because we brought some leverage of our own." He gestured. 2 vampires dragged something from the shadows. Not something. Someone. Jackson. Lena's scream ripped through the earpiece and across the quarry simultaneously. "No! How did you—" "The fortress physician," the leader said cheerfully, "works for us, has for years. Been feeding the council information about the king's activities. When you brought the boy in for a checkup today, well, too easy." Shade's mind reeled. A traitor in the fortress, a spy embedded so deep they'd had access to Jackson, to information, to everything. Jackson struggled against his captors, tears streaming down his face. "Mom! Mom, help!" "Let him go!" Lena lunged forward. 3 vampires caught her, slamming her to the ground. Her broken wrist hit rock, and even Shade flinched at her scream of pain. "Here's what's going to happen," the leader said, crouching next to Lena's prone form. "You're going to tell us everything about the fortress defenses, guard rotations, weak points, the king's habits, and if you're very, very good, we'll kill your son quickly instead of longly." "Go to hell," Lena gasped. The leader nodded to one of the vampires holding Jackson. The vampire raised a clawed hand. Shade moved. "Sire, no!" Reeves shouted, but it was too late. Shade launched himself off the ridge, becoming a streak of shadow and fury. He hit the quarry floor like a meteor, cratering the ground, sending vampires flying. The 2 holding Jackson released him in shock. "Run!" Shade roared at the boy. But Jackson stood frozen, terrified. The Brotherhood recovered fast. They'd been expecting an attack, just not this soon, not this direct. They scattered into practiced formations, surrounding Shade with military precision. "Well, well," the leader said, standing slowly. "The Vampire King himself. We were hoping you'd show up. Makes our job so much easier." He touched the locket at his chest. "Your son squealed your name before he died. Did you know that, father? Help me, over and over. Pathetic." Something inside Shade broke. He'd spent 3 centuries building control, discipline, restraint. It evaporated in an instant. He became what he'd been before kingship, before civilization, before mercy. A predator forged in darkness and blood. The first vampire, the ancient thing that had crawled from the earth when humans still lived in caves. The quarry exploded into violence. Shade tore through the Brotherhood like a hurricane through paper. Limbs separated from bodies, heads rolled, blood painted the rocks black. The vampires fought back. They were trained, coordinated, deadly. It didn't matter. Shade was centuries beyond them in power, in skill, in pure, incandescent rage. But there were too many, and they were smart enough to use it. While Shade ripped apart 4 vampires on his left, 3 more grabbed Lena. While he destroyed those 3, 2 others seized Jackson. "Stop!" the leader screamed, holding a silver blade to Jackson's throat. "Stop, or the boy dies." Shade froze, chest heaving, covered in blood that wasn't his own. Around him, 14 Brotherhood members lay dead or dying. 9 remained, forming a protective circle around their leader and his hostages.
Lena's face went pale, but she stood straight. "He's right. I'm not worth—" "Yes, you are," Shade's voice was firm. "You're worth more than every coward who thinks sacrificing the innocent makes them strong." "With respect, Your Majesty, you're letting emotion cloud strategy." Cade gestured to the carnage around them. "How many will die if we refuse? Hundreds? Thousands? And for what? A human who hunted your son?" "A human my son died protecting." Shade stepped toward Cade. "Marcus gave his life to save her and her child. And you want me to hand them over to the vampires who killed him? To prove what? That we've learned nothing? That his death meant nothing?" "His death meant he was weak," Cade said flatly. "As are you if you choose her over your kingdom." The other soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked away. Shade felt the weight of their doubt pressing down on him. 300 years of rule. And this was the moment it could all crumble, not through invasion or rebellion, but through a simple choice. One human life versus political stability. Marcus's voice echoed in his memory. "We're better than this, Father." "No," Shade said quietly. "We evacuate the villages. We fortify the borders. And we hunt down every member of the Crimson Brotherhood until they're extinct." "That could take months," another general protested. "They'll burn half the kingdom by then. Then we'd better work fast." Shade turned to Lena. "You said you were a hunter, that you tracked Marcus for weeks before finding him. Can you track the Brotherhood?" Lena blinked in surprise. Maybe if I had their scent, their patterns, but Shade, I'm one person with a broken wrist. I can't." "You won't be alone." Shade looked at his assembled soldiers. "Anyone who wants to stand with me, stay. Anyone who thinks sacrificing innocence is acceptable, leave now. I won't force you to fight for principles you don't believe in." A long, tense silence. Then Captain Reeves stepped forward, hand on his sword. I'm with you, sire. One by one, soldiers joined him. Not all, maybe not even half, but enough. General Cage shook his head in disgust. You're destroying this kingdom for a human. History will remember this as your greatest failure. He turned and walked away, a dozen soldiers following him. Shade watched them go, feeling the fracture in his kingdom widen, but he didn't call them back. Your Majesty, a young soldier approached hesitantly. I found something near Counselor Vex's body. It was clutched in his hand. He held out a blood-soaked piece of paper. Shade unfolded it carefully. The Brotherhood meets at the old quarry on the northern border. 3 days from now, midnight. They're planning something big. I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner. I was afraid. Tell the king his son was the bravest vampire I ever knew. Vex. Shade looked at Lena. You said you wanted to help instead of hide. Here's your chance. We have 3 days to prepare a trap. Think you can help me kill the vampires who murdered my son? Lena's eyes hardened with determination. Tell me what you need. A hunter's mind, Shade said, and the courage to walk into hell with me. She extended her good hand. You've got both. Their hands clasped over the ashes of the dead village. A vampire king and a human hunter forging an alliance that would either save the kingdom or destroy it completely. The abandoned quarry sprawled across the northern border like an old wound, deep, jagged, and long forgotten by those who'd carved it into the earth. Lena stood at the edge, studying the train through binoculars as the sun began its descent. They'll come from the east, she said, tracing invisible lines across the landscape. The wind blows west at night here. They'll want it at their backs to catch our scent before we catch theirs. Shade crouched beside her, impressed despite himself. 3 days of planning had revealed a side of Lena he hadn't expected. Methodical, calculating, ruthless when necessary. The frightened mother had given way to the hunter she'd once been. The quarry has 3 entrance points, Lena continued. Main road here. Service path here. And this gap in the fence that looks natural but isn't. I checked the growth patterns. Someone's been maintaining that gap, keeping it clear. Smart. Captain Reeves studied her makeshift map, drawn on the back of fortress supply lists in careful detail. They've been using this location for a while. Years, probably. Lena pointed to wear patterns on the rocks. See these? Regular foot traffic. Always the same paths. The Brotherhood isn't just meeting here. This is a base. Shade felt a cold satisfaction settle in his chest. How many do you estimate? Based on the attack patterns, supply caches we found, and the village burns, Lena's jaw tightened. 20 minimum. Maybe 30. All trained, all organized. This isn't random violence. It's strategic terrorism. And you want to walk in there alone? Shade said flatly. Not alone. You'll be watching. Lena met his eyes. I'll offer them what they want. Me. I'll claim I escaped the fortress, that I'm willing to trade information about your defenses in exchange for Jackson's safety. They'll never believe you. They will, if I look desperate enough. Lena's smile was bitter. I've had 3 years of practice looking desperate. Besides, they want revenge. They want to make me suffer before they kill me. That desire will make them careless. Captain Reeves shook his head. This is insane. You'll be completely vulnerable. That's the point. Lena pulled a small device from her pocket, a modified GPS tracker the fortress engineers had rigged. Once I confirm their numbers and locate their leader, I'll activate this. You'll have my exact position and can move in. What if they search you? Find the tracker. They will search me. That's why the real tracker is in my tooth. Lena tapped her back molar. The one in my pocket is a decoy. When they find it and smash it, they'll feel smart and stop looking. Shade studied her for a long moment. You've done this before. This kind of infiltration. The Hunters Guild wasn't just about killing vampires. Sometimes we had to get close first, gain trust, gather intelligence. Lena's expression darkened. I was good. Too good. That's why they sent me after Marcus. I never failed a contract until you did, Shade finished. Until you met a vampire who treated your baby like a person instead of a food source. She looked away. Everything changed that night. The sun touched the horizon, painting the quarry in shades of blood and shadow. Night would fall within an hour. Last chance to change your mind, Shade said quietly. I can find another way. A direct assault. We'll get people killed. Your people. Maybe mine too if the Brotherhood decides to start executing hostages. Lena adjusted the wire hidden under her shirt. Another piece of fortress technology. This one allowing Shade to hear everything she heard. This is the smart play. You know it is. She was right. Shade hated it, but she was right. Stay alive, she ordered. That's not a request. Wasn't planning on dying tonight. She checked her watch. They'll arrive in 2 hours. I should get into position. She started down the path toward the quarry floor, then stopped and turned back. Shade, if something goes wrong, Jackson, there's a letter in my room. Instructions for his care, some money I've saved. Promise me you'll... Nothing is going wrong. Promise me. The desperation in her voice cut through his certainty. This wasn't just bravery. This was a mother preparing for the worst.
Shade's mind raced, calculating angles, speeds, possibilities. He could reach Jackson in under a second, but the blade would move faster. Then Lena spoke, her voice clear despite her pain. Shade, the locket! The leader frowned. What? Look at the locket, Lena said. Really look at it. He glanced down at the silver chain around his neck and Lena's hidden tracker, the real one embedded in her tooth, activated. The signal blazed through Shade's consciousness like a bell tolling. Captain Reeves and 30 soldiers poured into the quarry from 3 sides simultaneously, surrounding the Brotherhood's remaining members. Crossbows raised, blades drawn, blocking every escape route. But Shade's eyes stayed locked on the leader, on the blade pressed against Jackson's throat, on the locket hanging from the vampire's neck. Clever, the leader snarled. But it changes nothing. I still have the boy. Call off your soldiers, or he dies. You're surrounded, Shade said, forcing calm into his voice. There's no escape. Let him go, and I'll make your death quick. Quick? After what you just did to my Brotherhood? The leader's eyes blazed with fury. You slaughtered them like animals. So here's my counter offer. I killed the boy, then the woman, and then myself. You get nothing but more dead people to mourn. Jackson whimpered, tears streaming down his face. Lena struggled against the vampires holding her, desperation written across every feature. Shade felt time stretching, each second an eternity. He'd been in countless battles, made impossible decisions, weighed lives against kingdoms. But this, a child's life hanging on a madman's whim, this was different. Marcus's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes the brave thing isn't fighting, Father. Sometimes it's choosing mercy when everything in you screams for vengeance. The locket, Shade said quietly. You're wearing my son's locket. So? It's the last piece of him I have left. I trade for it. The quarry fell silent. Trade what? The leader asked suspiciously. Your life. Shade's voice was steady despite the rage burning in his chest. Let the boy go unharmed. Let the woman go, and I will make you walk out of here. You keep your life. I get the locket. Sire, no, Captain Reeves protested. This monster killed Prince Marcus. I know exactly what he did. Shade never broke eye contact with the leader. But my son died protecting innocents. He chose their lives over his own. I won't dishonor his memory by letting a child die for my revenge. The Brotherhood leader stared, searching for the trick, the trap. You're lying. I'm a king. I don't need to lie. Shade slowly held out his hand. The locket for the boy's life. My word as ruler of this kingdom. What about her? The leader gestured to Lena with his chin. She goes free too. Both of them, unharmed, in exchange for safe passage out of my territory. The words tasted like ash, but Shade forced them out.
You have 10 seconds to decide. After that, my soldiers open fire and we all take our chances. The calculation played across the leader's face: pride versus survival, revenge versus escape. Finally, greed won. He shoved Jackson away. The boy stumbled, and Lena caught him with her good arm, pulling him close. The leader yanked the locket off his neck and threw it at Shade's feet. There, your precious memento. Enjoy remembering how your son died like a coward. Shade bent slowly, never taking his eyes off the vampire, and picked up the locket. The silver was warm, stained with old blood. Marcus's blood. He clutched it so tightly the chain cut into his palm. Now let me pass, the leader demanded. Shade stepped aside. Captain, lower your weapons. Your Majesty, that's an order. The soldiers reluctantly obeyed, creating a corridor through their ranks. The Brotherhood leader and his remaining 8 members backed towards it, weapons still drawn, watching for betrayal. As the leader passed Shade, he leaned close and whispered, "The council sends their regards," the same words he'd said to Marcus before killing him. "Wait," Shade said softly. The leader paused, turning with a smug smile. "Changed your mind?" "No. I want you to tell the council something. Tell them I know everything. Tell them their spy is compromised. Tell them the fortress physician died screaming tonight, along with anyone else who helped murder my son." The leader's smile faltered. "You said..." "I said I'd let you walk out of this quarry alive. I kept my word. But the moment you leave my territory, you become trespassers, and trespassers have no protection under my mercy." Understanding and terror flooded the leader's face. "You run," Shade said pleasantly. "You have a 30-second head start. I suggest you use it wisely." The Brotherhood leader ran, his remaining members scrambling after him into the darkness beyond the quarry. Shade counted slowly, the locket pressed against his heart. At 30, he looked at Captain Reeves and simply nodded. The captain's predatory smile was terrible to behold. "Hunt them down. Leave none alive." The soldiers vanished into the night like shadows given purpose. Screams echoed back within minutes. Short, sharp, final. Shade walked to where Lena sat on the ground, Jackson clutched against her chest, both of them shaking. He knelt before them. "Thank you," Lena whispered. "Thank you for choosing his life. My son would have done the same." Shade opened the locket carefully. Inside, the picture of Marcus's mother, young, beautiful, frozen in time, and something else, a small piece of paper, folded tight. He pulled it out with trembling fingers and unfolded it. Marcus's handwriting. "Father, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Don't grieve too hard. I lived the way I wanted, protecting the people who needed it most. That's worth 1,000 years of safety. Love is stronger than fear. Remember that. M." Shade's vision blurred. 3 years. 3 years this message had waited. "What does it say?" Lena asked gently. Shade couldn't speak. He just handed it to her. She read it, tears streaming down her face, then looked at Shade. "He was right, you know. Love is stronger." In the distance, the screaming stopped. The Brotherhood was gone, the debt paid in blood. But sitting in that quarry, holding his son's final words, Shade felt no satisfaction, only the weight of what Marcus had tried to teach him, that mercy wasn't weakness, it was the hardest form of strength. Dawn broke over the fortress like a promise. Shade stood on the highest balcony, watching the sun paint his kingdom in shades of gold and amber. Behind him, the throne room filled with vampires, hundreds of them, summoned from every corner of the realm. The council's empty chairs sat like accusations on the platform below. 5 of the 7 council members had fled during the night. Captain Reeves had caught 3 of them at the border. They weren't be fleeing anymore. The remaining 2, Councillor Helena's successor, and one other who genuinely had been ignorant of the plot, stood to the side, faces pale with fear and uncertainty. Lena walked onto the balcony, Jackson's hand clasped in hers. The boy's eyes were still red from crying, but he managed a small smile when he saw Shade. "It's time," she said quietly.
Shade nodded and turned toward the assembled crowd. The murmuring stopped instantly. 3 years ago, Shade's voice carried across the throne room, amplified by centuries-old acoustics. My son Marcus died. I was told he fell in battle, reckless, impulsive, a victim of his own poor judgment. The crowd listened in absolute silence. I was lied to. Shade descended the steps slowly. My own council paid assassins to murder Marcus because he believed in peace, because he thought humans and vampires could coexist, because he dared to suggest that feeding on the innocent made us no better than the monsters humans believed us to be. Shocked whispers rippled through the assembly. The council used human bait to draw Marcus out. They hired the Crimson Brotherhood to kill him and make it look like a rogue attack. And when a human woman tried to tell me the truth, tried to explain that my son died protecting her and her infant child, the council turned her away and buried the evidence. He gestured to Lena. This woman's name is Lena Brooks. 3 years ago, she was a hunter sent to kill my son. Instead, she watched him sacrifice himself to save her life. She spent every day since trying to honor his memory, weaving letters at his grave, seeking forgiveness for surviving when he didn't. Lena stepped forward, her voice clear despite her fear. Marcus saved my life and my son's life. He didn't have to. He could have run, could have let the rogues kill us, but he chose to fight. He chose to protect humans he'd never met because he believed we deserved to live. And he was right, Shade said firmly. My son was right about everything. We are better than our hunger. We are more than predators. And any vampire who thinks otherwise is welcome to leave my kingdom right now. No one moved. The council is dissolved, effective immediately, Shade announced. I will rule alone until a new system can be established, one that represents not just vampire interests, but the interests of all who live within these borders. Your Majesty, someone called from the crowd, an older vampire, scarred and weathered. What about the humans? Do we just stop feeding? We negotiate. We offer protection in exchange for willing donors. We establish treaties, boundaries, mutual respect. We become what Marcus believed we could be, not monsters hiding in shadows, but beings capable of coexistence. And if humans refused? Then we prove to them we're worth trusting. Shade looked at Lena. With her help. What? Lena blinked in surprise. You're a hunter. You know how humans think, how they fight, what they fear. Shade's expression softened. I need someone who can bridge both worlds, someone humans will listen to and vampires will respect, someone my son trusted with his life. I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress trying to raise a kid. You're the woman my son died for, Shade said quietly. That makes you everything. The throne room erupted in debate, some vampires shouting support, others protesting, still others demanding proof, evidence, answers. Shade let them argue. Democracy was messy. Marcus would have loved it. Jackson tugged on Shade's coat. Can Mr. King ask you something? Shade knelt to the boy's level. Of course. Was Marcus really as brave as Mom says? Braver. Shade pulled out the locket and opened it. Want to see what he looked like? Jackson studied the picture and sighed. That's not him. No, but my son carried this every day because he believed in love, family, and protecting what mattered most. Shade closed the locket and pressed it into Jackson's small hand. I want you to have it. But it's yours. And now it's yours. Shade stood, ruffling the boy's hair. Marcus would want someone who understands courage to carry it. Take care of it, and take care of your mother. She's going to be very busy helping me fix this kingdom." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Shade, I can't accept." "You already did," Shade said with a ghost of a smile. "The moment you decided to stop running and start fighting. My son saw that strength in you. So do I." He turned back to the assembly, raising his voice above the chaos. "This is the new law. The innocent, human or vampire, will be protected. Those who prey on the defenseless will face execution. We end the silent war today. We build something better tomorrow, and anyone who disagrees answers to me." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, vampires began to kneel, 1, then 10, then hundreds, accepting the new order, accepting change. Lena stood beside Shade, Jackson clutching the locket like a treasure, and watched the kingdom transform before her eyes. "Do you think it'll work?" Shade thought of Marcus's note. "Love is stronger than fear." "I think," Shade said quietly, "my son's going to make sure it does." Outside, the sun climbed higher, and for the first time in 3 years, Shade didn't flinch from its light. The war was over. The healing could finally begin.